Okay. Hi, Ebba. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, you've got a book you're promoting called True Starlight. I see the cover there behind you. And
Yeah,
is this basically your life? I hate to use the word memoir, but your life story?
yeah, as up to 2017,
Up to
and
two.
then
Okay.
we'll have a follow-up from 2010, 2017 and onwards, I guess. But yes, up till then, basically, it's a short slice or snippet from my life, I guess.
Well, I'm looking at your bio here, and it sounds like you've had a pretty tumultuous life, at least at the beginning. You came from sort of a dysfunctional family. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I grew up, my dad was in the music business and he was always about running around and always working from, at night. And I think that lifestyle was difficult to deal with for my mom. And also, she started drinking, and he was a bit of a philanderer. I think that's how you say it. And yeah, so there was a lot of chaos in the beginning. They fought a lot, and was just very chaotic upbringing, really, and not very. I didn't feel very protected, even though we had fun and it was a lot of spirituality in there too. Um, it was just a little rough. You can put it that way.
Okay, so you grew up in Sweden, is that correct?
Yes, yes, in Stockholm, the
Okay.
capital.
And you were there for most of your childhood or all of your childhood?
Yeah, we lived there basically until I moved abroad when that was late 90s. So yeah, my whole childhood and the early years of my 20s.
So you at some point got into modeling, is that correct?
Yes, I had a mom who was very beautiful. She looked like Brigitte Bardot, and I guess I wanted to be the next Cindy Crawford. And I was, people thought that I could have a career, and so I wanted to try it. So I did a few smaller jobs, and then I was found by a scout on the streets of Stockholm, and this man, he was a person who hung out with the artists and the young, little trendy people, artists and dancers and musicians and models. And he was scouting for new faces in Stockholm. So he kind of was a familiar. I mean, my friends knew him a little bit. So I he asked if I wanted to have go for or have a summer job because I was already working, and I really, you know, wasn't really looking to get a job abroad. But he said, I have a job for you if you're interested. So after I had talked to my boyfriend at the time, I decided to go to this to France to do this job. And I don't know if you want me to continue on that, tell that story.
Well, hold on one second. So how old were you at this point?
I was 20, so I wasn't really young.
Well, 20
Um,
years old is, you're certainly an adult, but you're a young adult and maybe not,
yeah,
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 experienced everything
definitely.
in the world, right? On your bio, it says that you were sexually assaulted during your time as a model. Was this the guy who did it?
Well, I was actually raped by the scout. So
Oh, okay.
yes, yeah, and I was taken to. It was very looking back, at the time, we didn't have cell phones then. I guess as a Swedish woman, also at that time, we grew up in a very safe environment. I trusted people. I was kind of innocent, and I've never really. Um, I was not really exposed to people who would be mm, evil or malicious or have a back agenda. So I trusted this guy, and we he didn't have a job. That was it was. nothing. And as I wrote in the book, there was no job in France, so he had to try to get new interviews with me. And on the way, he actually went to this villa. And now when I look back, I can see that it was totally set up for, I was definitely not alone. And I think this has probably taken place many times before, because this place was very awkward. And it was a dirty pool shack. I mean, it was a beautiful villa on the coast of on the Riviera, just outside Cannes on the French coast. But that whole place was just very nasty.
Well, so
Nasty. And
he was Swedish, right?
no,
No.
his name was, I think, David Goldberg, as I can recall. And he spoke French, and he spoke a little bit of Swedish, I think he knew, but mainly he spoke English. So with us, he spoke English. And
So you don't
then
really know
when,
where
yeah,
you don't
go
really
ahead.
know where he came from?
Well, the thing was, I found his passport, and he had a false passport. So he had so I know he was Moroccan, and he had a Arabic name.
Okay,
So
so
that's when I
this
got really scared
wow. Okay,
that
so
he was not who he said he was.
this guy was a complete phony, and he came to Sweden, he found you, and the whole thing to taking you and promising you a job as a model was all a guise, was all a ruse just to assault you.
Well, the thing is, I checked him with the model agencies in Stockholm, and they all knew about him. He was independent. He wasn't. They didn't know much about him, and they didn't warn me either. So, but I thought it's just going to be, this work. I get the ticket, and I get to go there and go home. So that was basically what I thought was going to happen. But then it didn't. So since there was no work where he had promised, I questioned him and said, where's the work that you promised? Because I only had one-way ticket to go there, so I couldn't get back home. And then he said, yeah, we're going to go to Paris. So we flew to Paris, and I lived with another agency, a man there who was gay. So that was a relief. And I got away from the scout. So, but then the scout arranged for a casting or a call or a visit with this model agency called Elite. And Elite was the most famous model agency at the time. They had all the supermodels, like Naomi Campbell and Cindy Crawford and
Yeah, I've
Linda
heard of Elite.
Evangelista and those
Yeah.
models. So the owner there was the guy who assaulted me in his office during the daytime. And that was a huge shock, because it was like somebody just had chopped my head off, basically, and ripped all my power away. After that, I was kind of desperate. Like, I was scared. I didn't know how to get out of this situation. And not only that, but I was threatened also, because I met somebody I knew from Sweden, and started telling him a little bit. It was during the day, and I told him a little bit what had happened. And then the scout came and pulled me away, and who are you talking to, and asking me, like, who's this guy and why are you telling him lies? And then he pulled me away from there and said, I could have you fucking killed, excuse the language.
That's
But he
okay.
said, I could have you killed because you don't know who I know. And he said, I know the chief of police in Paris. I didn't know if that was an empty threat, or that was just very uncomfortable. So I then, after, I also did a casting in the private home of this person called the owner of Elite Agency. And that's when I realized that this was a really dark business that I really didn't want to have anything to do with at the time. So I decided to come up with lies and say that I need to go back home. I will work with you, but I need to take my driver's license and talk to my boyfriend. And so I finally got my ticket to go back home.
So you got
And
out of
then
there. Yeah.
I got out of there, yes.
Did you ever
Very
file any
lucky.
charges against these people?
You know, I blame myself 100%. I thought it was my own fault. And I think that's very common as a victim
Yeah.
of sexual abuse and assault. So I swore never to tell a soul. I even wrote in my diary that I just wanted to forget the whole thing. But what happened was my boyfriend, he was, of course, I was deeply um, hurt. I mean, physically also, so he could hardly touch me. And I think that was the reason finally that I told the truth, because he was really worried about me. So I told him the truth, and then I just didn't think about going to the police. It wasn't until years later when BBC had done a documentary that came out, and also there was a raid in the late 90s there, and I saw it in the newspaper, and I thought to myself, wow, this is amazing that this was not only me. It must have happened to so many more women. But I still didn't do anything. I told my parents eventually. It was not until I started writing my book where I started to do research and found out that I wasn't alone, that there were more women like me.
From the same place, with the same
Yes.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
And also victims who were actually raped by this owner. And I think, I don't know how many people have been abused by him, but there could be hundreds. I don't know,
wow.
many.
So where is
Hmm.
he now?
Well, he is on the loose. He is, I think, living in Ibiza, Spain. But we have filed one of my, how do you say it? Like one of the other victims. She has filed a lawsuit because she was still within the statute of limitations. So, we have all. I finally this summer, or not, it was last year in September. I filed the deposit. Well, I filed or gave my deposition to the prosecutor in Paris, and that was just 30 years later. But that's very common. A lot of victims don't come out until they have kids themselves, and I have a daughter who is 20 now, so I think all of that, having a daughter who wanted to be a model, really triggered my own memories.
We've got just a couple of minutes left. And so your book is called True Starlight, and it's basically the story more in detail of what we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the book is really about standing in the shadow and not living fully from your full potential. And part of explaining that journey was experiencing darkness and living in the darkness for so long, until the day I realized that I needed to live for my higher self, or my true self, which is the true starlight, is really the true star within that we all have, and that the energy, the power that we all can tap into and be guided from. So the title, I was married also to high performer Robert Karlsson. He was number one golfer in Europe. So that also is a lot about the stories, how I felt like I was living in his shadow. And so this book is really about finding my voice. So it was written to inspire people to find their voice and
Yeah, it
basically
sounds like it was also
tell their
very,
story.
very cathartic for you to write that book. Yeah, very
Oh yeah,
therapeutic.
most definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. It was scary. It was very scary, especially to start sharing. But I knew as a coach, as a transformational coach, I feel like it was necessary to be authentic and share that truth, so other people could relate and feel comfortable and safe, and tapping into that power themselves.
So that's what you do now. Is you're a sort of a life coach for people?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a healer. I
Okay.
work with um, energy healing and also transformation and law of attraction and those things to really help people deprogram and live from a more authentic space within. And so I have trainings and I have a website called True Start Coaching.
We do have to wind this down. Could you give out the website, please?
Yes,
Again?
yes, of course. It's www.truestarcoaching.com. And also I'm active on Instagram as True Start Coaching, and Facebook, so people can follow me there and they can sign up for my newsletter, and I can if they want to, they can buy my book from my website.
That's True Start, TRUE
STAR, yeah, True
.com.
Start Coaching.
True Start. Okay. Well, Ebba, thanks so much for sharing your story, and I hope that people listening who may have gone through similar trauma like you have will get up the courage and speak out before it's too late, because I know there is statute of limitations, and like you said, a lot of victims don't come forward because they're ashamed or they have other things they don't want to get involved with. But I think it's important. I think the message is very important.
Oh yeah, it's necessary to get help, for sure.
Absolutely.
And there is help to get. So